I am Mazi KK Odeluga.
Mazi Ejikebe Obasi.
Now Mazi Okachukwu. This is Straight Talk Radio, the world as we see.
Coming to you from WGHC 98.3 FM. Your voice, your music, your station.
Listen to us this and every Saturday at 4 to 5 p.m. U.S. Central, and this and every Tuesday at 9 to 10 p.m. U.S. Central. Ndewono.
Are we live on
Facebook? Yeah.
Good afternoon and welcome to another episode of Straight Talk Radio, coming to you from WGHC 98.3 FM. Your voice, your music, your station. With me in the studio today is
Mazi KK Odeluga,
and I am Mazi Okachukwu. Our other co-host is not here today physically, but he may be dialing in. This afternoon we are back to you again on our Africa Saturday. And we are sorry that we came to you a little bit later. It's because we were just listening to the program in front of us, which was really, really good, talking about community and how we come together and how we should support each other, which is a good thing that we would like to continue on. But before we do that, we recognize that last weekend, flowing into this week, was Memorial Day weekend in the U.S. and a lot of activities here, remembering those who made the ultimate sacrifice in protecting our rights and the way of life here in the U.S. for us. I know also that around the world there are many celebrations. One of them in Nigeria was Children's Day, May 27th, right?
yes.
So Children's Day has always been May 27th in Nigeria. But also we know that there were other things that we remember in Nigeria for the month of May, especially if you're from the eastern part of Nigeria. Actually, any Nigerian should be able to know what May, the month of May, means for that country, for that history. And so there was Democracy Day celebration too.
Yes.
And what is Democracy Day? Could you help me? Because I'm not sure I quite understand that holiday.
I asked the question to a few of my friends in a forum.
Yes.
And of course, basically what it is was 1999.
Yes.
General Abu Salami, one of those people who interrupted the democratic process.
Yes, yes. With the handover from Babangida to civilians after
That's
an
right.
election. Yes.
So because every military regime in Nigeria should be seen as illegal.
It is illegal. They're not
And
elected.
so they were never elected. And so again, he took over from at the death of Abacha.
Abacha, that's right.
And so 1999 he handed over to the civilians,
Obasanjo.
And so at that time, that was when
Was it in May?
it was in May.
Okay.
So the elections were
Was it
done in February.
May Day, we're handing over to civilians.
February was the elections, and so they purposefully decided that May 29th, 1999 will be the day of that they will hand over. That is the beginning of a new civilian regime that we are currently pursuing.
So that's
And
the
so
Democracy Day.
that's what led to the so-called Democracy Day.
So we should have many Democracy Day if that's the case, because in 1960 there was independence.
That was
and there
October
the
1st.
October 1st, 1960, and then Obasanjo in 76
Yes.
handed over to civilians. Or was it
No,
78?
78.
Handed over again to civilians. That should be another Democracy Day.
That's right.
And then Abu Salami, is that his name?
Yes.
Handed
Abu-
over again
in
in
90.
May. So we should have 3 Democracy Days.
Now,
But-
what
Yes.
I find very disturbing
Yes.
is that the Hausa Fulani oligarchy, if I might use that word,
Yes. Yes.
will choose February 29th.
You mean May?
May 29th
Yes.
as Democracy Day, knowing fully well
What what that day meant.
What that day meant in the annals of history, global history, not just Nigerian history.
Yes.
Because on that fateful day, which was a Sunday, was the beginning of the genocidal attack against Easterners in northern Nigeria in 1966. And that was the beginning of the process of eviction of the Easterners from the northern part of Nigeria. And eventually the Easterners decided to be on their own in order to be able to defend their own lives and their property.
And yes.
So to choose February 29, which was the day that the federal government, which was the day that the northern element, in collaboration with the government of the north,
in collaboration with the armed forces of Nigeria,
that's right, killed a lot of Easterners, especially in Igbo, maimed many, and that pogrom, so-called pogrom, which actually is genocide, continued till July 29. On July 29, even on August 29, there were some skirmishes, but September 29 was another big one. And so eventually, that was what actually began to lead to the whole call for... That's right.
The separatist movement.
That's right. So most of the separatist movement began there.
Yes.
And so to choose that day as Democracy Day is to not only rub it, you know,
we call it whitewashing of history.
It's trying to rewrite history.
Yes, it's somebody trying to use a blot out and use a what do we call that white things that you use when you
white out
to
that is what I see, that the Nigerian state, it does not want to confront her history. So the best way to do it is you try to cover it up. So May 27th was the day that the Eastern Region Consultative Assembly in 1967 gave the right, the authority, and the mandate to the leadership of the Eastern Regional Government under Lieutenant Colonel Ojukwu, that at any time they deem it necessary and fit,
you could now tell the world
they can declare the republic
that we are ready to
live, to succeed.
Yes.
Now, that is May 27th.
Yes.
Okay, so it was also the day that Gowon jumped on a radio station
and decided he was going to carve out many states.
That was the day he decided to create 12 states out of then the
four
regions.
There's some kind of propaganda.
Yes.
So it's like we're going to counter this news with this news and
that's
see
right.
if I know.
But what I find, and that is one of the things that I would really love to speak with Yakubu Gowon
about. So
is to ask him, why did you choose to celebrate children? Why did we create Children's Day
on the same day?
On the same day,
yes.
And why children? Is he trying to assuage his conscience for all the Igbo children that he starved to death, and to say now, oh, Nigeria, we are trying to celebrate children? No, he does not. As at the time that in 1970, when this was put in place,
yes,
he cannot tell me that he loved children so much that he was celebrating children.
And there are evidence that it can't be Children's Day, because if it was Children's Day, how about those children that were dying of kwashiorkor? How about those children who were starved of food? How about those children who in 1970, coming out of the war, were still in grave need and danger? What did the Nigerian government do to take care of that other than celebrate Children's Day?
Nothing. I remember clearly that what he did 6 months into the relief effort, he sacked everybody and said, okay, they're fine. They're fine.
Yeah, we can take it from here.
That's right. Yes. But I remember us coming out of that whole crisis, there were so many children who couldn't survive. In fact, more people died the first 2 months because some of what had happened was the feeding centers were shut down because Gowon, again, arrested all the missionaries, the Holy Ghost fathers who were manning the feeding centers and who were responsible for relief.
And charge
them for working in Nigeria without
papers.
without permit. and fine them
They were
200
illegal
pounds.
immigrants.
They were, that's right. These are missionaries.
Yes.
These were men of God
Who came to help.
who stood, shepherds who stood with their sheep, and of course that's what a true shepherd will do. And go on being the son of an Anglican priest
Son of a preacher.
should understand that
Yes.
the call for the shepherd is to stay with the flock.
Yes.
And then if the Irish fathers had dusted up their
And
and ran,
they will be hired laborers.
then everybody would be looking at them and say, man, these guys are hirelings.
He knows
But,
exactly.
but
what I'm
they
talking
did something
about. Yes.
that we will forever be grateful to
Yes.
for. That they stood with their congregants.
So in essence, you were saying Children's Day for May 27th is baffling. Why that is Children's Day? But if we had used that day to say this is a Thanksgiving Day, where we will give a Thanksgiving for all those people that helped us to get to peace during the war,
Yes.
and also to help us get beyond amend the fences.
No.
That would have been a great
No,
celebration.
yeah, but Gowon doesn't think that way.
Right.
Remember that at the end of the war,
Yes.
he made clear, he told the entire world
Yes.
his own assessment of the help that was rendered to us.
Yes.
He accused those priests
Of
and
bad
every
intentions.
volunteer
Yes.
that brought a cup of water, a cup of milk, a kind of a bag of cornmeal,
Yes.
or a stick, one batch of okporoko.
Yes. Stockfish.
He accused them of actually being responsible for every child and every death that occurred in Biafra, because they were the ones who prolonged the war, which means
by giving them food to survive. Right?
so that by giving them food, so that his siege and
Yeah.
blockade
would
was-
have made this faster and
quicker
got him
death.
through where he
Yes.
was.
So if we lasted for 3
A
years,
more merciful death.
yes. So he wanted a quick kill,
Yes.
but these guys were more or less.
They are prolonging the
They helped some of us survive.
his life put you guys on life support for a while.
They gave us a lifeline, and to him, that was actually what there was a crime,
So you are listening to Straight Talk Radio on WGHC 98.3 FM, and we are going to take a 1-minute break so that you could think about what you heard. But as we come back, I'll give you a number. If you want to be part of the conversation, you call us at 773-942-7167. You could join us on Facebook Live if you are not already. If you're listening to us on TuneIn app, that's great. That's on Android or on your Windows PC, or you could download the WGHC 98.3 FM app from the Apple Store for your iOS equipment and listen to us. If you want to listen to voice only, call the phone number 563-999-3221. But if you want to call us in the studio and be part of the conversation, the number once again is 773-942-7167. On Facebook Live, we could see your comments and we'll talk about it when we come back from this 1-minute break. Thanks for listening.
Your very own African Caribbean station, WGHC
All right.
98.3.
Good setup.
Support us, your favorite station. Help support our
I
mission
said
by
good setup.
donating $1 today on our website, WGHCFM.org, and our Facebook page. Click Donate Now and fill out the form, or call us at 773-942-7167. Your donation is helping us keep our station up and running and impacting our community. We are your voice, your music, your station.
Many Africans feel
234
very
shares
strongly
already.
about their motherland.
That's good.
Africa is a continent that calls those who are born or
that's not
rooted
right.
in any of its
Something is up.
countries to always return home, especially after leaving this earth.
Am I looking at that
The
right?
truth
That's-
is, African diaspora communities in the U.S., Canada,
I just
and
give
Europe
sent it to
still
everybody.
struggle
All right,
when it comes
25
to
shares.
repatriation
Okay, it was
of
me.
millions of their loved ones.
What's
Add
going
an extra
on?
The
number.
frustration that people experience when they are
234 is a
forced to
lot.
leave their loved ones, remains abroad, is a terrible thing to endure. This is why Corporate Workforce Solutions developed RC, a mobile app to help raise funds for funerals and repatriation, but more importantly, take care of the kids left behind with huge amounts of bills, rent, mortgage, and education costs.
So
Let's
I'm
come
going to
together
move away
to
from
create
that
a much larger
conversation,
community
and
make
we're going to
fundraising
talk
for
about that
funerals and
holiday
repatriation
and then get into
seamless
the
and
meat of the
effortless.
discussion.
Strength is always in numbers, and RC is meant to be the perfect platform to help the African diaspora raise funds. Join RC today and strengthen your sense of community within the African diaspora. By so doing, it will bring peace of mind
So,
to you and
we
many
need to
others who are worried about the
give a
remains of
shout
their
out
loved
to the
ones
Igbo-
being abandoned in a foreign country.
Igbo first, the
A
IAC,
single
Igbo
hand cannot
first,
tie a
Igbo
bundle.
But
Even the
can I-
strongest
can I
and
make
richest
voice
needs their
over
community
Ayanabo?
through a rough
Yes,
time.
yes, yes,
The
yes.
benefit guarantee per event is $15,000 for US and Canada and $7,500 for Europe. RC is easy to use and loaded with great features. Download the app from Google Play and the App Store. On Google Play, search for RC, and on the App Store, search for RC Donation. RC is available for the African diaspora in the US, Canada, and Europe. To learn more about RC, visit us at www.corporatewfs.com or email us
Okay,
at
that was
rcdonation@corporatewfs.com.
In between
Sign
shows,
up
I like
today.
to listen, make sure it's still
RC,
going on
in a
Facebook
true
and
spirit of
the tuning
African
up.
solidarity.
Thank you and welcome back to Straight Talk Radio, coming to you on WGHC 98.3 FM, your voice, your music, your station. We are right back from our break. I hope you listen and you continue to listen. Tell your friends about this. We come on every Saturday, 4 to 5 p.m. Sometimes we do an hour more just because we love it so much. We also do our global shows, still Straight Talk Radio, on Tuesdays from 9 to 10 p.m. U.S. Central. And if you're listening to us in Nigeria, when we talk on Saturday, that will be about 10 p.m. Nigerian time. So it's not too late. You could stay up and listen to us on TuneIn app or even on Facebook Live. So welcome back. And we've been discussing about the holidays in Nigeria. And there's way too many holidays. I wonder if those people ever get any work done. But recently, they celebrated Children's Day on the 27th of May. And then a Democracy Day on the 30th, on the 29th of May. And for me, as somebody from the eastern part of Nigeria, I know different meanings for those days. And we are thinking, and we are suggesting that the Nigerian government is trying to whitewash the Nigerian history by putting other things on dates that are significant in the life of Nigeria, something that is not really always discussed, which is the Nigerian Biafra Civil War. And my take has always been that if we don't discuss those wars, then we will never really truly heal of those people who still have wounds that they are nursing from those. But to also whitewash the history by putting other things on those significant days is really, really a travesty. And if old head of state is listening, Gowan, we would love to invite you whenever you find yourself in Chicago to come down to WGHC 98.3 FM radio station. We would love to talk to you. I know we are not always gracious when we talk about how we feel about some of the things that happened, but it would be great to hear it directly from the horse's mouth. And we will be graceful and grateful and very gracious hosts if you do come. Now back to other things. So in Nigeria also there were too many other things that happened. So on the 30th, there was a day of quietness in the eastern part of Nigeria, and
A sit at home.
a sit at home that I hear was extremely successful because the streets were blank, the markets were closed, nobody was out in the streets. The people that were out were just strolling and catching some fresh air, but people decided to reflect and sit at home and mourn for those who are still mourning. But a lot of people chose to use that day to remember and reflect.
Yes.
And why would somebody sit at home on May 30th?
1967
Yes.
was the day that the Easterners chose to undo, like K.O., my friend, would say, to undo what was done.
Yes.
And it was the day that Lieutenant Colonel Odumegwu Ojukwu
Yes.
declared the birth
Of the Republic
of Biafra.
of Biafra,
And
the land of the rising sun.
And that inspired a whole lot of hope
Yes.
within and outside of Nigeria.
Yes.
Because for many people who knew what was going on in Africa, Africa just coming out of a colonial era,
Yes.
they felt that this may be the beginning
Yes.
of the people,
The first true freedom.
freedom, people taking their lives back in their hands.
Yes.
And so there was no, there were a lot of love that was showered
Yes.
upon the Igbo, the Efik, the Ibibio, the Ogoja,
The new Biafran
the
nation.
birth
then.
of the new Biafran nation.
Yes.
But of course, in certain quarters,
Yes. It wasn't always the same.
it
It was
Stirred
not
up a lot
it was
of
not
fear.
celebration. Yes.
anxiety,
Yes.
and of course, the question is, how dare they? You know, but nobody asked how come,
So how?
because the signs were there.
Yes.
Because if anyone had followed the way the story of Nigeria was going at that time,
Yes.
in August 1, 1967, 66, sorry,
Yeah.
Gowon, as he made the broadcast after the coup of July 29th, that saw the death of so many
Easterners.
Igbo and Eastern military officers,
Yes.
and a lot of Easterners were killed in northern Nigeria,
Yes.
civilians, I mean. And so August 1st was the first time Gowon, as the head of the coup plotting group, addressed the entire world. And one of the things that he said, that given what has happened in the last few months,
Yes.
which is talking about the things that happened in
coup
May,
and counter coup
the May, it's not even the coup, given what has happened,
in May, right?
that he sees there's really no basis
For this country
For unity.
called Nigeria.
for
Yeah.
unity.
Right.
Yeah. And so, but that was his position
At that point,
at that point.
when he was talking by himself, when he was speaking to,
But remember-
before the advisors came.
Remember
Yes.
that after the May 29th event in northern Nigeria,
Yes.
that Lieutenant Colonel Ojukwu advised a lot of Easterners and encouraged them to go back.
And he made his own visits.
And
to
he
show
made
that
he
there
made
is
his
still
a
love
visit to
across
Jos,
the brotherhood.
and then invited Adebayero
To
to
come
the University
on,
of Nigeria as chancellor, and installed him as chancellor of the University of Nigeria, just to kind of like mend fences,
Peace offering.
and got assurances
Yes.
from the northern emirs that the
That
lives
mistake
of the
would not be
Easterners
done
were.
again.
So, but this was a reaction. So when July 29th happened, that was a wake-up call
Yes.
for him and for many of the elites in the eastern region who hitherto were kind of like wavering. By the time September 29th happened, it became clear. No nyajulaju, amanjo onwe.
So I want to take a pause here. Why I want to bring this forward to today. Why I'm saying that I'm not trying to cast suspicion or anything on anybody, but there are so many talks of alliances and building bridges across multi-ethnicity and multi-political blocks. And what I will say is to be cautious, because we've seen this before. So Ojukwu made the trip, had assurances, had some what we would think are alliances, that these will not happen, and made just some gestures that trying to shore up the alliances. And then people still had ulterior motives. So when you start making these alliances with other nations, specifically other nations beyond Igbo land or even beyond the eastern part of Nigeria, and when you still make sure that your agendas match.
Yes. So I hear you.
Yes.
But unfortunately, like the Igbo says, now before you see other mafia,
No.
before mother ada akusoya, it's bakonya kulifa akudebie.
Yes.
So that necessitates that we have to have alliances. But what I hear you, what you're saying is, no go.
Yes.
So you need to now make sure that your cutlery is long enough to be able to. So you eat with a long spoon.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
So May 30th is the day we stood up that we no longer will have to allow ourselves to be hunted. We stood up to defend ourselves.
Yes.
We said, look, if the government cannot defend our lives and property, then let's form a government that will fulfill that primary role of any government recognized under international law. The role of a government, every government, is to ensure the protection of the security of the life and property. And that wasn't guaranteed under Nigeria as was then organized under Yakubu Gowon.
I want to also make sure that people get the context, because a lot of times we say this and people are thinking, oh, we're always saying north, north, north. When this happened, Ironsi, an Easterner, was the head of state of Nigeria.
That's right.
And even he could not guarantee the life and property of the citizens of Nigeria,
That's right.
especially the Easterners.
Yes.
So when that declaration was made, nobody knew where Ironsi is.
No, as at that point,
Nobody knew what happened to him.
no, the story had not come out completely, but at that
But
point,
people know that he may be in danger, or maybe
no, he already come out in the Aburi conference of January of
That's right,
'67.
that's right, that's right.
It already been clear that was where Gowon
that he's
finally
admitted.
to Lieutenant Colonel Ojukwu and the entire world that Ironsi is there.
Yes.
Prior to that, it was like he's kidnapped,
Right.
and we don't know his whereabouts.
So let me amend my statement. So when people started running home to the east,
Yes,
nobody was sure of where Ironsi is.
that's right. So by July 29th, people were on shore.
Yes.
And by September 29th, he has not been accounted for.
Yes.
But everybody had knew all the other people that had been killed.
Yes.
And so at that point, the sense of insecurity for the Easterners within Nigeria was high.
Escalating at a geometric level.
Yes. So May 30th was when we declared
Actually,
Biafra.
exponentially, geometric, exponentially.
Yes. So now I really want to commend
Yes.
those who stayed home,
Yes.
those who organized the sit at home or
Yes.
called for it.
Or, yes, those who made people aware.
That's right.
And call consciences to actually
Yes.
reflect.
And so if any of the Igbo governors are listening, this is a key. You need to make sure that on that day.
Well, you're going Igbo governors. Well, they
I'm not going to ask every Nigerian to sit at home, but I'm going to ask the Igbo because when they do
those representing us, whether they are governors or they are senators
Yes.
or they are Congress people,
Yeah.
you have definitely been failing at your job. I mean, not that we didn't know this before,
Yes.
but to see the success of the masses in organizing and saying, you know what, this is not official, this is not by those representing us, they didn't get this from the government, but we are deciding that for us, as the government, because I want the people listening, the citizens, to understand that they are the government.
That's right.
As the government, we are deciding,
As the Oha.
or Haka,
Yes.
that we are deciding what's good for us.
That's right.
Now that, I think that's the demonstration of people actually. If this
That
was,
is the demonstration of
that
people's
was-
power.
If that was democracy then,
Yes. That would have been perfect.
that was the best way to express your freedom to be a people and your choice.
Yes.
So democracy worked on that day, although I would prefer a different name for it.
Yes. No, I mean it's quite commendable that people stayed home, and I hear that the security agencies were again marshaled into Anibo, and then of course they didn't see anybody on the street, so they went back with their bullets.
So what's the? I mean, them being marshaled into Alibo. What's
No, because you see,
what's the difference for everyday life? If you're traveling anywhere in Alibo, you're going to see security every few miles.
No, meanwhile,
yes,
you know the interesting thing
yes.
that in Nigeria you have marauding gangs of Fulani headsmen armed trained by Gaddafi
yes, according to the
that
president.
are not Nigerians,
Yes,
parading and
with guns and
with
AK-47, with
and-
impunity and killing people.
and there is no state of emergency
And the
in-
police and the federal
trying to
resources
contain
and
them.
military are nowhere to be found.
No. So, but in the east,
Try to drive 1 mile.
no, because you see, we knew this.
Yes.
We knew this that we are an occupied territory. And it has to be realized.
The Hebrews think that they are from the land of Israel. I'm
No, no.
thinking they're more like live in Israel in the Gaza Strip, right? Because they are occupied.
No, this is occupied territory.
Yes.
And so the security agencies that are all over Eastern region, that is the best way to deal with them. Don't show your face. They don't need to see you.
Yes.
Then they go home with their life ammunition.
Well, you make the day easier for the police anyway.
Yes.
'cause
No. They
they
don't
get
like
paid.
that. They don't like that.
Because they don't collect 50-50.
Because if people are out on this road,
you can't collect those little tokens
That's right.
from the people.
yeah. So, but again,
Change.
it is very commendable. It shows that our populace have matured, have come of age,
It shows.
are beginning to understand the power
It shows that
of the people's power.
Yes.
Uh-huh. And so I wish and hope and pray.
Akwụkwọ nsọ si na mmalite okorobịa bụ ịtụ egwu Jehova. So this is a mmalite okorobịa for.
Yes, the beginning. So I hope that our people will take this to the next level and see how to use this to hold accountable those who they elected.
And when you say this, I want to make sure that our listeners are getting it right. When you say this, you're saying the energy and power and understanding to take what belongs to you, to actually decide that this is my life.
Yes.
I am going to reflect on this day. There is no other this. You're just saying take the knowledge of knowing that you have this power to decide what happens to you, that you don't let life happen to you.
Yes.
The democratic power that was demonstrated on the 30th. But I want to go back to that before we start telling them, before we start calling our attention to what they should use this to do, right? It wasn't just because one man sat at home
Yes.
or that one village decided they were going to sit at home.
Yes.
It wasn't just that two people, or actually that just Anambra State decided that, you know what, in Anambra State nothing will happen. It was that a community of people in multiple states in Nigeria, the southeastern states, decided that they were going to take the day and reflect.
Yes.
So it's not that, what I'm trying to point out is that it was a unity movement.
That's right.
And I want to, we want to commend the indigenous people of Biafra. I know they always, not always do they get mentioned with something good. So I want to give them huge big ups from those who say that, who say it like that in Nigeria. I want to give them a huge shout out for at least proposing and announcing and reminding people that the day should be a solemn day.
Yes, it should be a solemn day. It's because the interesting thing is that at the end of that crisis, so-called end,
Yes.
because now I'm beginning to doubt
Yes.
if the war really ended in January 15, 1970, as we were told. I know that General Effiong appeared in Lagos and turned over the reins of the government
Yes.
of the Republic of Biafra.
Yes.
So, but I don't know if there was a ceasefire agreement that was signed.
Well,
Now, it says ceasefire in the sense that even an official document to say cessation of conflict. But I know that since then,
Yes.
the same group of young men, what people I
The
call the class of
1966.
have continued to be in power in Nigeria, and they have continued to perpetuate, to actually prosecute that war on us, Ndibo. And so that is beyond.
I want to even extend it, right? So they've been prosecuting this war on Nigerians, especially in Igbo. But every Nigerian feels the brunt of it, because in a war, it's not just the guy with the guy from afar or with the gun that gets hit. If you put a soldier in the field to fight, even if there are no soldiers on the other end, there are casualties. We know
That's
people
right.
who come back and their mental state is not always what it's supposed
That's
to be.
right. That's right.
So there are casualties on all sides. They continue to prosecute this war on Nigerians, with the brunt of it being borne by people from the east.
Yes. And now you see in different communities, other ethnicities are beginning to recognize that.
Yes.
One while the South Side picked that up quickly.
Yes.
And now the middle
Well-
belt is beginning to really see it in a different dimension.
The South, they look Igbo, they sometimes sound Igbo. So they should pick it up, because if somebody is looking at somebody
Yes.
who looks like you,
Yes. So
you
so
may fit the profile.
but again, to me, this is the beginning of that emancipation, the Ebon Renaissance that we're talking about.
the renewing of the mind.
When people now begin to do things because this is what is good for them, not because they are, and not do things
and the
not do
them
things.
is the collective them.
Yes, and not do things because they are afraid of what will happen to them. Now,
Fear, anxiety.
yeah, you see, because the official positions, yes, you can still toe the line of the official positions, but if you are not able to tell your own story and do what you want to do for yourself, you're not free.
Especially if what you're trying to do for yourself is very healthy and it's not, and I repeat, not adversely affecting anybody else.
Yes, because all the Igbo is asking, since the end of that supposed end of that conflict, they didn't even allow us to grieve.
Yes. If
And so now,
you can't
so
talk about it,
so
you
now,
can't grieve
so
about
now you see delayed mourning,
Yes.
delayed grieving for among the
That's
people.
had a profound effect on the country.
That's right.
On all, because everybody's suspicious of everybody.
That's right.
And doing business with an Igbo man, you're not sure if he quite thinks of you the way, I mean, if he's treating you the way he should treat his own
No,
Igbo brother.
yes.
And an Igbo brother is also suspicious of Igbo brother because a lot of things happened during the war.
Yeah. So now that at least, thanks again to IPOB, the word Biafra is no longer
A bad word.
A bad word.
Yes.
Because Gowon said it should be removed from the lexicon
He said
of
that-
conversation.
That sun who is said to never rise again, but he got up the next morning and
And saw the
rose.
sun. But again, my point being that
Yes.
when you try to hold somebody down,
Ade Rafi Maka,
and then Oji Madunani,
Ojo, me onto you. Let's go.
Jomie,
Yes.
when you try to hold somebody down, you're actually holding yourself.
You're delaying
Your progress,
Yes.
your movement.
Yes.
So,
you're not
so
impeding you're not
that's right.
pinning him down.
So,
and
so
impeding
it
on
would
you.
have been, again, if he knew anything from his catechism and from his religious training, he should have understood that mourning is all, and grief is a process of
healthy.
loss,
It is
and it's
healthy.
healthy. So you would have seen him making sure that we have enough priests in the east for counseling. He's sending in all kinds of relief workers to look at the children, because as at that point, the world was unified in its assumption that people in my generation will grow up brain damaged, because we were growing up our growth spots were at the
food was
point
not there, right?
that we needed protein, and that was the thing that we were starved. So I wasn't supposed to be smart.
Well,
I'm supposed to be a
the
dog.
prediction is extremely
No, but it's God.
extremely over exaggerated.
No, but it was real.
I understand.
It was real in the sense that when they look at, because child development experts were looking at the issues.
What I mean by that being over exaggerated is that they did not know the spirit of the people they were dealing with.
That's right.
To
it's-
assume.
Yes.
Yes, the assumption was way off.
No, but I mean, based on what they are looking at scientifically,
Yes.
they said, look, a lot of dumb people
Based
are
on
going to
what-
come out of
based
this.
on what we know.
Are going to come out of this generation. But thank God that that prediction did not come true. But there were a lot of us that died. 3 million children starved to death.
Yes.
It has never happened in the history of mankind.
It's a
And
shame that kind of thing happened and it was just glossed over.
no, yes, you see, the world moved on
Yes.
for two reasons. There were so many people who were silent and who were complacent, who never did anything, and so they didn't want to feel the guilt of it. Then two,
Maybe it was too daunting a task and they said just
it
forget
was, again, some of those things that happened in one of those black holes where it shouldn't get to see the light of
Yeah,
day.
it wasn't-
So it was Africa. It was at the time that
National
America
interest
was
had nothing to do with our national interest, right?
dealing with Vietnam, and then of course you had the 6-Day War, and the Arab-Israeli War
Too
was
many-
affecting the
too many
oil
others.
prices, global economy. So people in Europe were struggling to get their economy all back up, and of course UK who was the main perpetrator and the firm supporter of the federal government,
they had their sights set on some other things. They had their national interest, which had nothing to do with the people.
No, but you see, their national interest was clear. They wanted the oil from the southeast. They wanted the Biafran oil in order not to cause the increase in the fuel prices, because that was the argument they were making to the rest of that if the Middle East oil has gone because of the 7-day war and the Arab-Israeli conflict, then if the Biafran oil goes, then the global
prices will
go up and the prices of the global economy will go topsy, and then now you really don't know what's going to happen. So because of that, there was silence in the Security Council. And I say that because that is one of the monumental failures of United Nations, that they did not do anything. And the Secretary General at that time, Secretary, I think is Tanaka from, I think Southeast Asia. Yes, he said nothing. He did nothing. He deferred all things to OAU. And of course, OAU was just maybe barely 8 years in its infancy. Of course, didn't know his left from his right. And of course, all of them had their own colonial pop masters.
A global failure.
Global. But the interesting thing is, you need to hear the names of the people that were on the other side.
The people that came up and supported, despite all these other apparatus.
The people that supported the federal government to continue the blockade that stabbed the Biafran children were, one, the United Kingdom,
Russia.
Active, every bullet, every artillery, every gun. Then you had Russia, as if that's not familiar. And so they brought the means.
So Russia and Great Britain on one side.
And then you have Egyptian pilots and Pakistani pilots flying those MiG jets from the Russian jets. So Britain says, oh, we'll give you bullets, but we won't give you airplanes.
And Russia will provide airplanes.
So then, of course, they didn't want to get involved, but they knew their war planners.
You give bullet, but you don't want to get involved. You're already involved, but indirectly you are involved.
So bottom line, thank God that we survived. And now we are telling our story. Our generation must tell our story, and the story of those who couldn't make it, who could tell their story. And that's why
that day
speaks to me loudest, because that was the day Ndi Igbo sat back at their home to mourn their death and to remember those great men and women that sacrificed for their own safety and security. Because let me tell you, a lot of our people, a lot of young men were lost. It's almost like a class of young men coming out of a generation coming out of University of Nigeria and Soka, who just gave up their lives. And then you have 15-year-olds that signed up because they didn't want their mothers to be raped. They didn't want their sisters to be raped. There were so many young men who stood up and said, I'm going to defend my land.
Right. It wasn't like they were conscripting child soldiers. These are people who are saying, I can't stay at home and let this continue to happen.
That's right. And then they see entire communities needing food, relief they have to depend on one meal, and then usually that's a corn meal, a porridge once a day. Thank God for Uli Airport. Thank God for the Caritas. Thank God for World Council of Churches, Presbyterian Church of Canada, the Scandinavian churches, and all the men and women of goodwill. Biafra was the first time in human history that civilians organized an airlift that broke a siege. When it was Europe, there was Marshall Plan. It was a government and that did massive relief effort into Germany. When it was Biafra's time, there was no government that showed up. No international Red Cross was barred from coming by Gowon and his administration. And so it was civilians, churches, non-governmental organizations that came together. People in this country, America, stood on the street corners and collected money, had bake sales, collected clothes, did all manner of things to raise money for the starving children of Biafra. And so we want to use those opportunities to say thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you to all of
Because
you.
of your goodwill and all
And
because
many-
of your great effort.
And you know the interesting thing, many of those children like me that survived that conflict, because sometimes people when they give, they're wondering whether did I make any difference.
How did that work
I am
out?
here now
Yes.
as an American
Yes.
because you gave.
Yes. You're not just here as an American, and you're not just here living on government dollars. You're an American contributing to the economy and helping,
And so many
you're
people like
proud,
that,
and,
that's right.
and America means something different to you than somebody maybe who just heard the name and
Yes.
never really had any help.
Yes.
You actually are compelled because
Yes.
of the help you received to be able to.
Many people gave to the Biafran cause.
So I was born after, but I know I have brothers who were born during and brothers who were born before, and I have uncles on both sides of my family that were in the front.
Yes.
Actually, one of my uncles was hit by a bullet and was transported out, and so I've heard stories of the war. It's affected me, and hearing those stories and hearing of people who help, I am glad to be here too. I would like to say thank you to all who helped, because who knows what would have happened if they didn't help.
Yes.
Who knows how long this would have gone if I would have been able to make it, if my parents actually would have been able to survive long enough to have another kid.
Yeah. And so again, going back to where we started, that is why it is important that the story be told.
Yes.
Because the story being told does not mean that it breeds anger or hatred.
Let's talk about the story being told after this 1 minute break. And if you're listening to us on WGHC 98.3 FM, your voice, your music, your station, and you want to be part of this conversation, call us at 773-942-7167. We're also on Facebook Live. And if you haven't downloaded the apps, if you're on Facebook Live watching us, you could download your TuneIn radio app from the Android App Store, from the Google App Store, or from Apple, the App Store. You could get the WGAC 98.3 FM app to listen to us. We'll be right back after this break.
Outside of a 9 to 5, do you feel frustrated because everyone around you seems to be starting businesses and getting ahead? Are you frustrated that your numbers not increasing year over year? If you answered yes to any of these questions, we have a solution for you. Average Black Girl is a boutique marketing firm with a focus on marketing strategies, website development, project management, securing sponsorships, working with startups.
We always do that
Here
at
at
home.
Average Black Girl, I'm Danielle Mitchell, and founder and international marketing strategist with experience working with big box brands.
So what were you saying,
beverage
Draco?
companies,
You were
PR
saying-
Oh, no.
and many more.
No,
I'm using Average Black Girl to help
The
create
idea
more
of
Black
remembering
entrepreneurs by
Okay.
giving
is telling
tools
these
and strategies
stories
to business
telling
owners
these
is
to
so that
maximize their growth.
people,
Head over and
you
visit
know-
my site at
So
averageblackgirl.org
keep me one
and
of the
book a
things that came to
session
my
with
head
me.
again is story
Mention
call.
this ad
Yes.
and you will
So
get a free
talk about the
15-minute
story
strategy
and let's
session.
talk
Kick
about
off the new year making your
story
goals a
4.
reality with
I
Average
know
Black
we'll
Girl.
hit it
Because
more
there's
when
nothing
we-
average
Yes.
about this Black girl.
For those who are here in diaspora,
WGHC 98.3 FM, your voice, your music, your station. If you're enjoying the show, you can show it by donating as little as $1 a day. WGHC is a non-profit
By the way,
organization,
I
and
have
your donations are
up
what
to
keep us up
23
and running.
videos on
It's
YouTube
easy.
now.
Just
Yes,
visit our
wonderful
website
to see
at
it.
www.wghcfm.org. All
Yeah, because
donations
I was
are
just thinking about it.
tax-deductible.
All right,
Social
this is our
media,
6th
Instagram,
month.
Facebook, and YouTube at
So I
WGHC
one of those things I
98.3
was
FM.
uploading them without putting a date.
Many
Okay.
Africans
The later
feel
ones
very
are putting
strongly
dates
about their
on.
motherland.
I may have to go back.
Africa
for
is a
the-
continent
Yeah,
that calls those who are
old
born
ones
or
are
rooted
putting
in
dates.
any of its countries to always return home, especially after leaving this earth. The truth is,
Yeah, would you
African
put on YouTube
diaspora
this show?
communities in the
Yeah.
US, Canada, and Europe still
just take it
struggle
off
when
of,
it comes to the
Facebook, yeah.
repatriation of the remains of their loved ones back home. The frustration that people experience when they're forced to leave their loved ones remains abroad is a
Yeah,
terrible thing
it's
to
not.
endure. This is why Corporate
Really?
Workforce
Yeah,
Solutions developed RC,
Yeah,
a
you're
mobile
right.
app
Yeah,
that helps
yeah,
raise
yeah.
funds
Yeah,
for
yeah.
funerals
It's-
and repatriation.
there's no,
But
video
more
file, right?
importantly, take care of the kids
that
left
team
behind
going straight
with
to
huge
the
amounts of bills, rent, mortgage, and education costs.
Uh-huh.
Let's come together to create a much larger team to make fundraising for funerals
I don't
and
know.
repatriation seamless and effortless. Strength
Let
is
it
always
be
in
in the
numbers,
fridge.
and RC is meant to be the perfect platform to help the African
there is
diaspora
no
raise
water.
funds. Join RC
somebody
today
probably-
and strengthen your
Is it
sense
in
of
bottles?
community within the African
Okay,
diaspora.
so somebody.
By so doing, it will bring peace of mind
Maybe
to
next
you
time I
and many
come, I'll bring
others
some things
who are
to put in the
worried about the
fridge.
remains
I
of
say
their
every
loved ones
week
being
and I forget.
abandoned in a foreign country. A single hand cannot tie a bundle. Even the strongest and richest needs their community through a rough time. The benefit guarantee per event is $15,000 for the US and Canada, and $7,500 for Europe.
Gio was
RC
talking
is
about it
easy to use
last
and
time I
loaded
met
with
him.
great
He can dial
features.
into the meeting.
Download the app from Google Play and the App Store. On Google Play, search for RC, and on the App Store, search for RC Donation. RC is available for the African diaspora in the US, Canada, and Europe.
We'll be ready after
To learn
that.
more about RC, visit us at
On YouTube, it's just Straight
www.corporatewfs.com
Talk
or
Radio.
email us at rcdonation@corporatewfs.com. Sign up today. RC, in a true spirit of African solidarity.
Can go.
Welcome back to the program. You are listening to Straight Talk Radio on WGAC 98.3 FM. And before the break, we were talking about the restful day that was observed in Nigeria, the remembrance of the May 30th and what it means to the Igbo people. And we were thanking the people that organized it, and we were saying that this is the beginning of the renaissance of the Igbo renaissance of people beginning to think and work as a community. And before we left, we were talking about the importance of us telling our story. Mazio Delega.
Yes, and I think it's key because even the good book will ask the children of God
to write
Israel
it down, put it on your fences,
to
tell
create
it to your children,
to
make
create a
of it.
memorial.
Yes.
When they cross the river Jordan,
Put an Ebenezer right in the middle of Jordan, so
That's
that
right.
the next generations will ask you and you tell them that story.
why this? You see, that is the key. So when the IPOB and all the other pure Biafra groups ask everybody to sit home, and so I'm sure a couple of children
I say,
woke up in the
Mommy, why are
morning.
we not going to school today? Why
Eh.
are you not going to work? Why is nobody
Daddy-
in the market? Why is the shops not open?
Okay, I hope somebody told the story, because it's important that every family tells their story.
You know, actually, people in the East are a lot of Bible thumping.
Yes.
I'm hoping they're Bible believing people. And one of the biggest memorials in that Bible has to do with the Pentecost.
That's right.
Because what happened was there was the last plague is such that the firstborns of Egypt was
Yes.
going to die.
Yes.
And if there's a blood, on
Blood.
the door,
Yes. Which you mean Passover?
Passover, sorry,
Yes.
Passover. There was a blood on the door. Pentecost is 50 something. Sorry, Passover. If there was a blood on the door, then the angel of death
That
would
will
pass
pass over.
by.
Yeah.
But there was an instruction that followed it. The instruction is, do this. Every so often remember this. Because
Yearly. That's right.
Yearly is an annual celebration,
Celebration.
so that you will be able to tell your children what happened.
That
How did
we
get
were
out of
once
this?
we were once slaves
in Egypt.
That's right.
And it took the hand of God and a death angel and a miracle of some sort to get us out.
Yes. So that is the importance of memorial. Imagine we are okoloto.
Yes.
Now look at you leave some landmarks, some ancient landmarks, you leave some memorials,
Yes.
you leave some marks so that generations to come will know your story. They will know the family story.
We used to do it, I remember in my neck of the woods, there are some places they put Ogirisi.
Ogirisi, yes.
And it had a special significance because somebody would say, why is that Ogirisi there?
Yes.
And somebody would tell the
Yes.
story.
And even in some compounds, I remember growing up, my father, there was a grapefruit tree in my house. And my dad will always tell the story. I planted this grapefruit the year.
In memory.
No, he said the year I went into grammar school. He went to DMG. So that was the
Does
year.
monkey go to school?
So that was the day. That was how he memorized that whole
By the
event
way,
is
I
that
want to, that was a jest. My brother went to DMGS and he's very proud of it. So that's a joke. DMGS is Dennis Memorial Grammar School. So
That's right.
we in jest say does monkey go to school.
so
all the
so
DMGS alums, hey, don't come after me. It was just a joke.
yeah, but the point though is that we must tell our story. I find it very I mean, it's surprising that many families have not even told their children, so many fathers have not even told their children about their involvement in the Biafran War.
And a lot of times we think it's because the children can't handle it or because it's going to call up all these terrible memories or things you want to forget. But I'm not a psychologist. I wish we had one on here because they will tell you that it's part of the healing process.
Yes.
To process those thoughts and
Yes.
to go through them, because as you go through them,
Yes.
you kind of let go.
Because
But
a
if
lot
you
of-
hold on to it.
Yeah, a lot of those experiences and memories were buried.
Yes.
And so it's been shown that if you unburden your soul by telling the story, at some point you find out that initially
you
you
lay
might-
down your burden. So to
yes,
speak.
you may tell it the first time and cry, tell it again and cry, tell it again and cry, but by the fifth time, sixth time, you will begin to see that you can really tell the story without the emotions in it because you already processed
You're
it.
processed it.
And what is more important about that is also your children will know your story.
Yes.
And also the people that helped you and the people that didn't help you. So that when things come up in their life, they know who to go to and who not to go
There
to.
are some experiences you wouldn't want other people to find out by experiencing it.
That's right.
There are some things there's some wisdom that you pass just by
Yes.
your telling other people.
And I know sometimes because I talk to a lot of our people and they will say, don't go there. You know, they don't want to go there. But it is high time we went there. It is high time we start unearthing this. Otherwise, because like we shared at the beginning of this program, there are people who are actively rewriting the story.
And that's one of the things. I mean, so if the Bible that we have, the story of the Israelites that we have,
Yes.
if it was not written by them,
Yes.
imagine how the Assyrians or the Egyptians would have
Or the
written-
Philistines.
Aha.
Or the Babylonians.
Or would have, actually, I'm pretty sure that they have their accounts. And
That's
it
right.
probably doesn't look anything like what we read.
That's right.
Because it was from their point of view.
Yes.
Right. So I know of some accounts of Assyrian kings talking about them. Actually, what's his name? What's the one that touched Hezekiah? He has his annals of what happened and him trying to conquer Jerusalem,
Jerusalem,
Judah,
yes.
and wasn't able to. Although
Yes.
he besieged it for years, and
Yes.
then he got overrun by some other
Yes,
attackers.
yes.
But that's from his point of view. He told his war stories and how he got there and what he was planning to do and how his plans were diverted because somebody else attacked him.
No, look at what is even the narrative about the Nigerian Biafra War. It's some people say civil war. Okay.
I understand when you look at two people who look like they were family and they're fighting, you call it a civil case.
But that's not what it is.
It's almost like saying that a woman who was being beat by the husband, that's just a civil matter.
Yeah,
It's a civil case.
yeah, no. You see, it's in Nigeria was the one that attacked Biafra.
A people that said, since you can no longer protect me, I am going to go to my father's land, my homeland, where I do have property and family. And since nobody's protecting me
And
now, stay on your own. I'm going to take care of me.
It was not a border issue.
It's
Nobody,
to your home or Israel.
yes, nobody came out saying, "Oh no, you took our land. Oh, you took you
They
you
were in
extended
their
your."
own homestead.
We were within our own ancestral homeland.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
And so, July 1st, July 6th or so,
Yes.
that was when Gowon attacked Biafra.
The Biafra.
And we had to defend ourselves.
Yes. And that, yes.
And so really, it was us defending ourselves from annihilation.
And people don't call it that. They don't call it a genocide. They don't call it an ethnic cleansing. They don't call it what we
Yes.
think it is. The closest is a pogrom.
Yes.
But beyond that, actually, what they refer as the program is what happened before.
Yes. So now, why is that important? If we don't tell our story, there are people who are telling this story to reflect
Who are
their
not
own.
even telling the story. They're telling something different.
Yes.
They're putting other things on the dates that should be the memorial
That's right. Some of our big days are now being co-opted
for something.
for something else.
You get a holiday, but the holiday has nothing to do with what it should be.
You know, you see, this thing got me so angry because, not really. I mean,
So riled up.
I don't really want to get angry by any of but my point being that I saw a greeting from one of the banks in Nigeria, Happy Democracy Day, on a day that I knew
It was a
that
solemn-
I woke up that morning and said, wow,
Reflected.
there are so many people my generation that lost their father on that day.
Happy Democracy Day.
There was people my generation that lost their mothers on that day.
Happy Democracy
There were people my generation whose entire family was annihilated from the face of the
It
earth
has nothing to do
on
with Democracy
May
Day.
29th, 1996.
1966.
1966. And then somebody, imagine coming to their relative, imagine coming to any of these people and you're saying Happy
It's
Democracy
like
Day.
somebody coming to a funeral where everybody's mourning and goes to the guest and says happy birthday.
Happy birthday. Because it's your birthday.
Even if it's your birthday, nobody's going to come to a funeral that day and come to you and say happy birthday
Yes.
because they know you have something much more
That
important.
respect
Yes.
that day. Respect
Not
the
that
memory.
not that you're blaming the bank, right? Because
No,
the
the-
bank is trying to get customers and they're saying that
No, but they
they're
should be-
celebrating a holiday.
No.
It's our failure,
Yes.
previous failure, that we haven't educated them enough to know what it is that we are.
That's right. So no bank or
we are
business
memorizing.
should, if you have an Igbo customer,
Start acculturating your
tell your
businesses
people that to send them
that
a
on
happy-
that day,
a happy
they better not
Democracy
be
Day
telling you happy birthday during a funeral.
it's like I like that analogy. The analogy. You know, it's like saying happy birthday to me on my dad on
Or if
funeral
somebody
day.
that you love is being
No, so some people have to become sensitive.
yes.
These things, because oftentimes sectors of the Nigerian society are being treated as if they are not human beings, that they don't have feelings. You see, that's the thing that really boils down to
That's why I
that,
like
that there is a dehumanization of a sector of people that does not, because when people don't treat you as human,
yes.
it's not just because it's because they don't recognize you as a human being. You don't have feelings.
But also part of it is how you carry yourself, and what I mean by that is now that the people have carried themselves differently,
Yes.
then it gives a message to whoever's watching from outside that I have to treat them differently.
Yes.
Because if you were not celebrating it and it didn't mean anything to you, and
Yes.
somebody else was trying to corrupt it for something else, but now you're saying no. This May 30th is my day.
Yes.
If you actually start saying May 28th, 29th, 30th is my day,
Yes. Yeah.
then people will start treating you as if it's your day.
Yes.
It's almost like going to an employer and say, look, these 3 days are my birthday, they are my this, and they are my that, and every year I am going to take it off.
Yes. No,
Your employer is going to say, hey,
No.
I know he's going to take off these days. So if they're going to assign anything on that day and they bring up, they're going to say, no. He is usually off on this day. If you're going to schedule anything on that day, you better talk to him and make sure.
good. I'm glad that you brought that up because I was at the point of making that decision, but the school system that my son was attending changed. The first year he was in that school, on Martin Luther King Day, which every state have now recognized.
Oh, by the way, shout out to Illinois that finally, the Illinois House that finally passed the what's the name of this act that everybody has already signed, but this current congressional sitting in Illinois finally ratified the it's not the civil rights. I'll remember it. Keep it
Yes.
on.
So anyway, so the school, he went to school on that day.
Yes.
So the next year I geared up, and I told him, I said, look, on that day you're gonna go tell your teacher that you're not gonna be in school the next day because it is Martin Luther King's day.
Yes.
Then he told me, no, Dad, we're taking the day off. So yes, those are important things to do. And there may be people who sat home on May 30th because maybe, okay, you may not have agreed with the idea of sit home. You wanted to go out. You were afraid what may happen to you if you step out on the street. I want you to rethink.
Yes.
Maybe you need to now own that day.
If
And
you're thinking
remember-
what will happen to you if you sat at home, think about what has been happening to you because you haven't taken your life in your hands. What has happened to you because you've let other people dictate how you feel.
And how you function and what you do, what's important to you and what's not important. Think about all the people in your omona, in your family, that
never
died
came back.
in the war.
Yeah.
And ask yourself one question: is there a memorial? Is there a did your family put together 2 blocks? I'm not talking about a bronze statue
Or
or
plant a
glowed. Did anybody plant a tree? Is there some plaque somewhere that told every generation that Johnny,
Something written
that
down.
Okechukwu, that Nnamdi, that Bele died during the war at age of 2, buried because it was Kwechoko. Now, because so many families are so ashamed to talk about the fact that their child died from Kwechoko, what do you expect? It's not your failure as a father
It's not
or as a
anything you
mother.
did wrong.
It's nothing that you did wrong. There was no food,
There
period.
was nothing you could have done.
Every lizard has gone. Every Odu has been written. Every
I
rat
heard
eaten.
stories that said that during that war, when people started eating lizards, that lizards that used to appear everywhere disappeared.
That's right. All the lizards, I can tell you that all the lizards were gone.
They started taking care of themselves.
Because
too.
I knew how long we have to walk
Yes.
in search of one lizard.
Oh.
And if you see the crowd going after a lizard,
Yes.
you wonder if they're going after an antelope. No, but it's funny.
It's funny
But
now.
that is
It's fu-
but
it wasn't
that-
funny
but,
then.
but that was the only so kids Good.
Some people are listening to this are probably thinking it's like what's the show on TV, Survivor?
Uh-huh.
When people on Survivor, oh no,
yes, survivors.
Survivor,
Uh-huh.
right? Where people try to eat other things because they're being starved of food and they're in a game. This is not a game. This is
Real
real
life.
life.
So lizard was actually the domain of the young, small kid. Now you saw adults going after lizard.
Yes, you're
Because-
hunting lizards
with your dad. So that tells you that we were
It really
we were
got
in
tough.
a dire situation, and if the war had continued 6 more months, I would have been vulnerable. I did not know that there was a death sentence hanging over my head throughout that whole conflict. Thank God my father
Family tried everything.
went back to the farm. He could farm as much as he could, and we would scrap, all kinds of things,
And
plus
there
the
was
relief.
community, not minding there were conflicts,
Yes.
because whenever people get together and
We-
crowd
we
together
left-
in a small space,
that's right.
but there was much more community.
Sense of community. We left our abode and we ran to we went to Umomak finally. That's where we stayed. And they received us and they welcomed us, and those people gave us land to farm on. And so you saw those efforts be made. So there were families who couldn't. And on that, so you cannot look back with shame and say, oh, because your child died from Kwechoko, maybe you failed as a father. No, you had no choice in what was going
And
on.
that's why it's important for people to process
Let's
this by
remember.
talking about it. So
Do you
sitting
know-
at home, I'll come back. Sitting at home is great. Reflecting by yourself is great. But I'm hoping and I'm proposing that the next time that you do this, and don't wait till it's next year, as soon as you could, sit down with your family, process these stories.
Events, yes.
And if you are anywhere where you could get access to the internet, we actually have StoryCorps
That's right.
that will allow you to tell your story
Yes.
with a process already outlined that's like an interview that will help you ask
Yes.
questions to help you get started.
Yes.
And you could continue with that. You could tell your story and encourage somebody else to, and they will record this for posterity.
Yes. And that is something that Igbo League has organized with the StoryCorps company. Is Story, CSTORY.org.
Yes.
So if you go to
And you
that,
could download a StoryCorps
App.
and actually I will post
App.
it on our app. I will post it on on our Facebook page.
Yes.
So that if you are internet savvy and have access to the internet, you could download. The
That's right.
protocol
And
and
so
record. You don't have to be on the internet. Go on the internet to do that always. You could actually use an app and you could record yours and those of the people in your family.
yes. And so what we're encouraging the younger generation to do is to download the app.
And go to your bank.
And when you register, choose the community BWHOP, Biafra War Oral History Project. BWHOP.
HOP.
Yes. Biafra War
Okay.
Oral History Project.
Oral is not H.
Oral. O. BWH. Biafra War Oral History Project. BWOHP.
BWOHP. All right.
Yes.
Biafra War Oral History Project.
Yes.
BW.
And that is the community. When you choose that community, you will then whatever you record
Will go into
will
the
be
same
uploaded into that as that part of
Is
that collection.
It's part of that Biafra War Oral History Project.
And what is beautiful about this is that this story you just told will be archived for eternity at the
your children will hear your
at the
children's
Library
children.
of Congress.
Yes.
So you're telling the story, is being captured with the app, and then you upload it, and it goes into that community, and that is archived at the Library of Congress. Now, what will happen with this is that 300 years from now, 100 years from now, 50 years from now, there will be some of our children's children.
We disappear, and it's just the robots roaming the world, and they tend to play this. They will understand what humans used to do to humans.
Yes. So, but beyond
Or if
everything,
aliens come to Earth.
researchers
Yes.
can go back to these stories.
That's more realistic.
And then also, your children's children will go back to this. And so we're encouraging the young people, download the app,
And those
register
questions-
and join the community, and then go to your parents and
go to your
interview
uncles.
them, your uncles. So all you
Aunties,
need, everybody,
mommy,
you can do 5 minutes,
grandfather, grandmother.
10 minutes, 20 minutes, 45 minutes max.
You don't have to do it on one sitting. You could do
several
yes.
recordings, so long as we give you the title.
Yes.
You say conversation with grandma
Yes.
about Biafra or whatever it is. Ask them open-ended questions. There are guidelines on how you can interview anyone, and we'll be bringing this promo often in this program because it is vitally important that we tell our story. Very, very important that you record your story, and it's up to the younger generation. Force your parents, very gentle way, and it really, this is very useful because look at one of the greatest writers of our time and storytellers, Chimamanda.
Oh, okay. I thought you were talking
Chimamanda
about, yes.
Adichie. Now she's
Ngozi
married.
Adichie.
I don't know what.
She still goes by.
But
Chimamanda
okay,
Ngozi.
but anyway, the point is, she could only write half of the Yellow Song was based on conversations she's had
Stories
with her father
yes.
and her mother,
Yep.
and a lot of what she knows is based on information that she has gleaned from those who were participants.
And that's becoming a movie, and that's a third-hand information. But
Yes, but
it's the importance of being able to
telling your story, because like Chinua Achebe said, that unless the hunted
unless
the lions
tells their story.
tells
the
their story,
hunter is going to
the
continue
hunter is
to
going to continue
earn
to
the
carry.
glory of the hunt.
That's right.
Also, Chimamanda, also in her own way, actually there was a YouTube video that went viral for a second a few years ago where she's talking about the dangers of a single story. If you
That's
don't
right.
tell your story, there is a single story that's out there.
That's
And
right.
It may not be the one that
That
tells
you
exactly
have
what
to-
happened to you.
Again, and you know the brilliance of that speech is that she borrowed from an age-old Igbo adage.
Igbo wisdom.
You got that?
Yes.
And that is
Amami.
the Ife Kwuru, if I put a beer. You see, that is quintessential Igbo.
No,
Nothing
if you
stands
look at
alone.
if you look at the Torah and the law, right?
Yes.
When you are when you have an accusation against somebody,
Yes.
we just don't take your word for it.
Yes.
You have to have a witness.
That's right. So in the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses,
Something
let
is
all,
sure. Right.
let all things be confirmed.
Yes.
But so the Igbo knew that. So that was, I mean, but again, the young lady has become one of the most
If you're asking
brilliant,
that question, if you
brilliant
have to ask that
speakers
question.
in the world,
Yes.
simply borrowing from her own heritage. There's nothing, I've not seen her talk about anything outside of her own heritage. She takes something from her heritage
What?
and expounds it in a way that the world is saying, wow.
Everybody speaks from their experience and heritage out of the abundance of the heart. And your heart cannot just, home is where the heart is.
Yes,
And her home, Igbo land.
yes.
So out of the abundance of where that heart is,
Yes.
she's been speaking.
Yeah, and so it's important that we tell our story. So please download the app and then register if you're
It is
online.
Biafra War Oral
Oral
History
History
Project.
Project.
BWOHP.
Yes, if I may go over it again, you have to start the first. If you have a smartphone, download the app,
Yes.
and then as you're
And it's
registering,
both for iOS and Android. And
Yeah.
I have actually, I have a picture of the app. I have
Yeah.
an Android and I tried it. So
Yes.
I have a picture.
so
of-
when you register, make sure that you sign up to belong to the community that says Biafra
W
War Oral History Project. So once you join that community, then when you after you record the story, then you can upload it and it will go into this community. It will be part of this community. And tell everybody that you know. Tell all the people that you know. We need to begin because a lot of the people who experienced Biafra, who participated either as civilians, either as survivors, or relief workers, or soldiers, or those who work in the civil service, or just those people who were just involved because they were in Biafra. Many of them are dying. Remember, this is 67,
Yes.
and so there are so many of them that are on their way out. And so the more of them that we can gather, the better. Especially for the generation that were involved in running such an efficient government. Many of them buried their papers, destroyed their papers. So all the discoveries that were made during Biafra, we don't have the manuscripts, the plans, we don't have the patents or the drawings or the things the formulas that they used because nobody wanted to be seen with any document from Biafra because of the fear of being killed by the federal forces when they came into Biafra land then.
Yes. Thank you for listening to us. You're listening on WGHC 98.3 FM. We're going to take a 30-second break and we will be right back. But we're discussing the sit-at-home that happened on May 30th on the eastern part of Nigeria that had to do with people from the eastern part remembering what happened to them during the war. Thanks for listening to us and we will be right back. So, in conclusion, I want to dive back to
help support our mission by donating $1
talking
today.
about the group
All
that
it takes
organized
is $1.
and also
Go to our website.
what do we do now, right? So thanks to the people that organized, and I want to say, well, one day maybe organized. What is your next act? One day decided, what is your next act? And then you can talk about how you use it. What you started talking about, how you use it for good versus
Again,
evil.
773-942-7167. Oh, did I mention that it's tax deductible?
Huh?
We're going
Sure. Thank you and welcome back to Straight Talk Radio on WGHC 98.3 FM. Your voice, your music, your station. Before we continue, I want to give a shout out to our production engineer today, Melly P. She's doing a wonderful job. So if you're commenting on Facebook, please say thank you to Melly. She also actually has a show that comes on every Saturday between 1 and 2 p.m. It's Melly's Playground.
Mm-hmm.
It's really, really fun show if you want to listen. But she's our engineer today and she does such a wonderful job. Thank you, man. And we were discussing the sit-at-home that happened with a community in Nigeria deciding that they were going to they were going to take back their own day And instead of just waiting for the government to make a declaration, but decide that something happened to them on a particular day and they were going to make a memorial for it, that forced the entire eastern part of Nigeria to decide to stay home and mourn for those who mourned, and for a lot of others who were past mourning to remember and to reflect on the goodness that happened to some, and for those who are still mourning to reflect on those that they are missing and what would have been. But I want to take it back to what we started off talking about, which is there were those who organized it and did a great job, and the community that also participated.
Yes.
And it wasn't just one person or two people. This happened because a community decided to do this as a community. Now the question is, what's the next act?
I mean, who am I to tell them what to do? But there's a principle that I see.
Yes.
People's power.
Yes.
It's always very effective.
That's what democracy is supposed to do.
Non-violent protest speaks louder than
1000%.
better than anything else.
Civil disobedience.
Civil disobedience is a great Igbo tool that we have used in the past.
Remember the Aba women?
Yes, revolt. And the civil disobedience, it being the idea of Inoana,
Yes.
sitting,
Yes.
which the world does so often now, was actually one of the very powerful tools,
Yes.
democratic
The
tool.
civil rights in the U.S. used it. Gandhi
Yes,
used it.
but
against
our
the
people
British.
have known about it and worked it.
A lot of cultures have
Yes,
it. We
yes.
happen to be one of those cultures that have used it successfully with the British.
Yes, we used
And
it.
even before the British.
That's right. Despite the fact that they killed 50 women during that revolt.
And the 50 women didn't raise their hand. They
didn't
burn,
have guns.
They didn't burn and markets or things like that.
No,
they just decided we were going to.
Yes. So again, that has to be said.
Yes.
So, but let's stay with very smart strategies as this struggle continues.
Yes.
And so again, part of what needs to happen is holding accountable those we elect. And,
well, I don't know if I say those we elect or those who purport to represent us.
No, you see, let me tell you.
Yes.
In any democracy, once somebody lifts up their hand and takes an oath and say they had a vote,
they are represented from then onwards. Whether it was by selection or election, it doesn't matter.
You see, again, you can argue that
Yes.
because you see, a lot of it is people stay home
Yes.
and then criticize what happened.
People stay home and criticize what happened, but even sometimes when people don't stay home, and even when people are recording what's happening in their precinct, and if you went to get all the papers from the precinct and calculated it, it will look different than what they recorded for you.
And you see, that is where I'm going to.
Okay, good.
No, if I went to a prison
Yes.
and at the end of it, and I'm a party observer
Yes.
at that prison,
Yes.
and at the end of the vote, they count and they say, okay, this person has 50, this person has 20, 30, 40, 50. We all record that.
Yes.
Now, if that changes when he goes to the next prison, when we go to the collecting center,
Yes.
then we need to ask the question, who was the one that added the numbers?
Yes.
And whoever added the numbers, you hold them accountable. And always keep what's here.
Yes.
What can man Natazuno? Abaya lift friendship. There are certain things people should be doing within our neighborhood that they will know.
Accountability.
That you can no longer do this if you want to be part of the community.
Yes.
That was the power that the Igbo had. Because no one matches. When you are sopo
Yes.
is on their own. Remember in the good book when God put Cain out and said, look, you will be a vagabond and people will see you. The man knew immediately what was going to happen to him. If I had no protection of my community, then actually I'll be vulnerable wherever I go.
Not even just if I do not have the community.
Yes.
No man can be an island.
Yes.
If you want to see if you're actually a very, very strong person, lock yourself up in solitary for a while.
Yes.
And see if you could survive that.
So my point being that the power of Oha
Yes.
has always been the strength of the Igbo civilization.
Yes.
The moment we restore that principle, that Ohaka,
That is not just my primary self.
No, or
exist as a community.
because remember,
So,
the Igbo political, socio-political ideology,
yes,
it's that of the individual republicanism is tolerated, is allowed.
there's another
But
language.
there's a constraint that is placed on the individual by the community.
Yes.
So now, ofu aka ni na araro. Onye kwechi ekwe,
Yes.
mana ofu onye ada akali ora.
No, but we also know that the Fuaka Lotaman
Ozora.
so we make sure that now
That
this
Aka, we tell
you
the
have
Aka
know
where
the
to
kind
go.
of money you have,
No,
because-
yes, right.
Yes.
First of all, the Aka has to be warned. The full Aka has to be warned that you don't dip your
Finger in the wrong manner.
independence. You can't exercise your right
You're
in
not
such a
really-
way
You're independent to
This
an extent, but
will be
once your
illegal
independence starts
affecting
encroaching on my independence,
the
then
collective.
yes,
The collective well-being, the collective prosperity of the people is what determines the individual's action.
yes.
So that's what constrains. So when people began, like one night I woke up with Oliver the Coke,
Yes.
go as the other over there.
I
That
don't know why-
actually-
that's not an Igbo wisdom.
No, that is caliphate. That is house. That is
That
Fulani
is not our
caliphate ideology.
Yes.
That's not an Igbo ideology. Is not
It
Igbo.
has nothing to do with
It
it.
has nothing to do with Igbo. Igbo says, Ofonya da kaliora. Maka Ofonya, ora sielo Ofonya. Omalisi. But Ofonya,
That's
that's
we
right.
will all consume it
Yes,
and want some more.
That's right.
Actually, when my wedding, I thought I was doing very well by the amount of food that was cooked. But when they were that day, I hated on it, and we're demanding that now I'm a job because I didn't prepare. Well, meanwhile, I'm thinking that near AC
Yeah.
but I'm going to do it because near AC there were so many women from around the community helping cook. If they had just pulled that up and said, okay, this is just for you, eat all of it. So would it because I will not finish it. But you can present it to our Ozuro.
That's right.
So, Ofonya de Silva.
Ofonya
Yes.
So once we're able to go back to that,
Yes.
no matter who we ask to go on our behalf,
Yes.
then we can hold that person accountable.
Accountable.
Because then what they do is within the control of the people. They are true representative of the people.
Okay, so let me move from the people a little bit. So there were groups, multiple groups, but mostly the loudest of them in preparing people for this sit-at-home reflection memorial was IPOP. There were other groups also that made the same announcement, but one of the things that IPOP does, and sometimes it irks me, is they have some people that they need to maybe train a little bit, because a lot of people get up there and start giving mandates for things that you should really, that you should really appeal to the better angels of people to do.
Yeah.
But what I'm thinking now is they did a fine job with this, whether it was by mandate or by declaration or by the compulsory statements or by pleading. Whatever, however this happened, it's good that it was in the conscience of the people and it was well executed by people.
No, they
Now what I'm thinking is, how do they build on this? What's your advice?
no. The thing is, apart from the sit at home,
Yes,
there were vigils,
yes,
candlelit vigils. There were prayer sessions. There were things, events, activities that marked the day.
yes,
I think that the struggle that they have found themselves in,
yes,
they need to begin to see it as a marathon. Obro sprint.
yes,
Obro also nwata na-agba na obro ọkụ nwata na-agba ngadanya.
yes, yes, yes.
And like you said, it's not that kind of obro also nwaanyị na-agbachila ala n'aka.
No, no
It has to be done thoughtfully, strategically,
strategy.
and it's a long distance. So some of it is that I believe that they have come of age and will need to begin to think in terms of
Strategy.
concrete terms. How do you
The long view.
How do you institutionalize the movement? How do you begin to demonstrate to the people that you are able to govern? How do you demonstrate to the people that you're able to serve? Now,
so if you're
it's
talking
not,
about
it's
if
not
you're talking about
rhetorics.
serving and governance, that means that there is some kind of government, which
No, no,
may,
because-
and then there is some kind. If you're serving the people, that requires some economies.
That's right. So no, which means that you're asking the people to live where they are,
Yes.
to come to where you want them to be. You have to
to
show
show
them that when they get there, by what they see,
Moses came to the Israelites now saying, "Look, well, I'm going to get you out of slavery," and then what? He came to them and saying, "You're going to a land of milk and honey."
and he had. So when the people got into the wilderness,
They
complained.
This is not the land of milk and honey.
Okay, so what happened?
And he got them to keep.
No, what did he do? He then looked up to his Jehovah and said, "You, the one that said
You said
see,
milk and
so-
honey.
so-
You show milk and honey.
So then the people now started having manna and quail, and so
to hold them over till milk and honey.
they were fed in the wilderness,
And free.
and then they had shade during the day, they had light during
So
the
what
night.
we are saying,
You need to start serving and showing the people that you can be relied on to be
have
to
to
be
start
over
serving,
there
but
to
you have
serve and
you
to
have
shepherd
cast
them,
a vision that is meaningful and useful
right.
that the people could understand.
and they can buy into it, and they could see your. So again, if they borrowed the lead from other movements, because this is not rocket science, and Abraham Wabundi is Ijelija.
Oh no!
You ask yourself, what did the other people do?
Oh, yeah.
They had two
Those are
arms.
Marabogene.
They have two arms.
Yes.
They have the movement, which is the active movement,
Movement of the people.
and then they have the political angle that negotiates for the power and how to exercise power.
And
So
we have talked about how
yes,
you could actually start negotiating power for power. It's not by telling people to sit at home
yes,
and not go vote because by selection or election somebody's going to emerge. And
Then
when
in only no
when you
position.
go, no more.
so no way Lutheran.
So if you really, really want to take the power back and give the power back to the people, you should be telling the people who the candidate of the people is, or who that candidate should look like. What the
Yes.
candidate of the people.
Yes.
So remember land of milk and honey? You should be telling the people what it looks like to have a leader that will take you to the land of milk and
And
honey.
who are those
And
kinds
what
of
the
leaders?
profile looks like, even if you don't have one. Tell them what the profile should be. Or if you find a person in whom there is that spirit of God, as they testify for some of those that they put oil on top of their head, start telling the people this is the man,
The chosen one.
this is the chosen one. But if you decide you're going to sit at home and tell the people to sit at home, the few political benefactors that know how to work the game will come out. The cameras will be out there. There will be a vote. There will be a tally. There will be somebody representing you by selection or election.
Because no Okonye, Buanya,
Yes, yes.
Okonye, open in Noria.
I will hear my local con.
That's right.
If you do proxy,
Ọkụkọ ka ụmụ anụmanụ kpọrọ nzukọ.
yes,
Ọkụkọ wee sị
by proxy.
na ya ya eje m.
You have my proxy.
Biko
on
unu
my
lụzie
behalf.
onwe efe ọbụla akpatara ebe a
Which,
na uche dị ya na ya
I'm in support.
Yeah,
Whatever comes up.
So they went there and they asked the question, who will be the animal that will be used for sacrifice
Used to appease the gods.
and appease the gods? And so finally,
Everybody
everybody
said-
said, not me. There was one person who wasn't there. So
By proxy.
it's okay. No, Ọkụkọ si ife ọbụla ekwute.
Uche,
No, okay. So Ọkụkọ, that's why today he's the one who is the sacrifice for AJ to appease the
So
gods.
you know when people go to SMO, they always have chicken.
Uh-huh.
I mean when they do any kind of
Yes,
sacrifice,
no,
chicken is always there.
but there's truth in that.
Yes.
That if you take yourself out of the
game.
equation,
Yes.
you will not. I mean,
You
the
can't
world
lose the
has.
game. You can't lose the game before it starts. You
Yes.
gotta get in the
You,
field.
you gotta be there.
If you're not in the field,
And
you've
I
lost.
can understand the argument some of them are making.
Yes.
Oh, I don't like the Constitution. Now, until the Constitution is changed, you have to work.
How do you change the constitution if you don't
By-
have somebody on the table?
The day they now ask all those who are so-called elected, come, and none of your people are there, then it's funny. I say, okay, make sure you tell them my own story. No. You get into the room. So if we have,
You are
if,
complaining that your people don't have any seat on the security apparatus of Nigeria. How did that happen?
yes,
Didn't,
How many of us-
Didn't the government, didn't the sitting administration nominate people and put them through the Senate
Yes.
and the Congress to be approved?
Somebody
and
should
they
have-
got rubber stamps because your representation
Yes.
is not what it is.
because if your representation was what it's supposed to be, somebody would have raised an alarm and said, look, I'm not going to
I'm
be,
blocking this until you make it right.
or decide that a whole segment of the people are not going to participate in that approval process.
And
create a
then you
cons-
will be behind them because they are representing you.
and create a constitutional crisis. You see, if an
And as we're saying this, I know we started thanking IPOB and started speaking and saying what's the next act. I'm not just thinking this is just for IPOB. There are many other organizations, and a lot of these organizations, whether they are abroad or in Nigeria, are speaking on behalf of the people. Ohaneze is one of them. And the thing that I see why I'm mentioning Ohaneze is usually there is firebomb going towards Ohaneze way because they are the most visible. IPOB is visible of late, but we have to be a little bit more strategic. Even when now they know.
That's right.
So if you want to be closer to your people and be able to have a conversation with them, you can't push them far away.
No, you see, and that is the thing. Okay, now Okobi Obuna.
Yes.
In a big Umuna,
Yes.
there are people of various disposition.
In every house there are vessels of honor and dishonor.
So now, we don't want to caucus with Ohaneze, or we don't want to be seen with
That
them.
is called segregation.
No, you see, so everybody should be in the room.
Yes.
That is
On
the
the
way.
table.
That is the way Zeke them conducted affairs. You had Zeke, Emma Okpara, Akani Idiam. These are men of different disposition
If you
and
remember the
temperament.
Eastern states of old,
Yes.
right?
So and then they'll have the market women, they have the traders, they have the engineers, they have the business people, they have the money bags. In every Igbo community, that's the way we are stratified. That's division of labor. When the bundala, I got bogi, Louis, Sinondala, Apple. Papua did maybe Fendala name. And then the MSND Kenya, Bepoko.
There's time for everything.
Yes, I'm a data here. I went carry a assume we club a gem, Kavaziozi, club a Jeziozi. When they finish, then the elders will come.
They need you more for that.
That's
one.
right. Then the elders will come and sit down for diplomacy.
Yes.
And when diplomacy time is over, then they deploy their intelligence.
When there is action, you have the people that are most equipped for the action.
For the different action.
You can't have a 99-year-old man trying to lift a big block.
That's right. So
he's past that. He did that when he was young.
yes. So that my point being, as we find our way and reconnecting back to age-old principles that have continued to help us, let's not lose sight of the fact that we need each other. There was no way this whole sit at home would have worked if people did not make the decision themselves
That as a part of this community.
as a part of the community to stay home.
Yes.
Because upon niabo na elo the man ntulu na asị na ndali ọkwọtago. So na mmetụta arụ bụ sọ nwanne. Let's all stay together. Let's all work together. Let's not disparage each other. Let's work with one another.
People are different and will think different.
But
and it's good. The thing to do is to be able to listen to the opposing view.
yes,
So that it will help inform your, either help you crystallize your idea and say, I am right because I've seen the argument on the other side and it doesn't hold water.
that's right.
Or be able to convince you that maybe there is something you need to change.
That's right. And you see uche baba.
Yes.
And that is key. Because once the Igbo continues to recognize that Uche Baba, because I see this even among those of us who are in the struggle. Upon equal something that somebody does not believe, then you are the enemy, or you don't want to do this, or this is what we are doing. No, Uche Baba. Oh, yeah. So if somebody brings out his bag and dumps his Uche,
And you see what's in it and you don't like it.
No, count
the
it.
Good questions.
And then make sure that help him reorganize his thoughts. If you see that this guy is a hopeless guy, carefully ask him to put back in his bag
That's right.
and give him the
Give
respect
him the dignity.
of carrying his bag back.
Yes.
Because now,
If you start disparaging him,
yes,
he will have to defend himself.
and then everybody.
And then defend himself.
But again, the other part of it is the concept of ibezimako,
Yes. Onyamayo.
ibezie.
Yes.
So there's all because knowledge and wisdom
Nobody
is
knows.
nobody has
We have
monopoly
it all.
over
If I
it.
have it all, I'll be at home.
So ibezimako meaning allow somebody else to inform you. Allow some because only like Igbo jasi no nyala no chie.
Yes.
So that even the guy who is a little emotionally
We are mentally
unstable,
we are
but
right.
he still has there's some thoughts
The
and
mind
pattern.
yes, it's still
There's
there.
still some thought and pattern to his madness.
Yes.
Maybe we do not understand,
No, we don't
and
understand.
so we want to
But
be
it-
able to give him the chance and
the
opportunity.
benefit of the dobit. They was one of the people one guy with Angela what's the not benefit of the dobit? I'm a no you will be but not benefit of that.
Yes.
Yes.
Hey.
So
Yeah.
we are coming to the end of the show. It's a fun and wonderful show for us in the studio here. We really do enjoy. I enjoy the conversations with my co-host, and I am learning a lot every day that I show up here. But I like discussing about our people because it makes me sound wise sometimes. But if you know me, you know that I'm not that much wiser than you. So we like hearing from you. If you really want to be part of the conversation, today is over. So next time, write this number down, call it, and talk to us in the studio. It's 773-942-7167. If you called and we did not pick up because we were talking too much and didn't pay attention to you, we really apologize. We will do better next time, but it's 773-942-7167. Make sure, if you haven't already, to download the WGHC 98.3 FM app from the Apple Store. If you have an Apple iOS equipment, whether it's your phone or your Apple Mac, but if you don't and you have an Android with your smartphone, download the TuneIn app, or even if you're on Windows, download the TuneIn app and you could listen to WGHC 98.3 FM, your voice, your music, your station. By the way, this station is a community radio, which means it's supported by your generous donations, by the generous donations of listeners like you. And this program is sponsored by Igbo American Heritage, whose goal is to continue to promote the Igbo heritage and the American relationship and connection to the Igbo heritage all throughout the world. And this program is part of that mission and reach out to everybody around the globe. So please support us at WGHC 98.3 FM by going to our WGHCFM.org page. On the top right hand corner, you see the donate button. Any donation that you give us is pretty much appreciated. It's greatly appreciated, and we really thank you. And your donations are tax deductible, of course. Thank you for listening to us this evening. Before we go, Mazio Delaga, any last words for our listeners?
Igbo Gadi.
Igbo Gadi. That was the theme of the Igbo Studies Association this year.
So let's keep up
Igbo Adigo.
and let's keep working. The day is coming
Yes.
that we will sing that song of freedom.
Which one? I'm kidding. I'm kidding. There are so many songs of freedom. Actually, I remember a few of them. There is the one by what's her name? An American musician. But there is the one by Bob Marley.
And when we talk about the song of freedom,
Yes.
the Igbo quest
Yes.
is not just for the liberation of the Igbo,
No.
but for the emancipation of the black man.
Aha.
Because if you look all through our history,
Yes.
you'll find out that there's a struggle. There is a struggle for the emancipation and the liberation of the black man. All across the globe, all through history,
And when you're saying black man, you're
the
meaning
black human beings,
All right.
those of African ancestry.
Yes.
And so that was the principle upon which the Biafran effort was laid. That as a nation, remember the first black nation in the Western Hemisphere, Haiti, never really has paid the price for standing up for freedom, and seeking up justice. I mean, the fact that they defeated colonial France,
the French people, yes,
to gain freedom from slavery and oppression,
them today.
that they have not finished paying the price for it. It's almost like the entire universe is holding them responsible, is holding them under contempt for daring to show
to fight for freedom.
And so the same thing in Africa.
Yes.
Most of the African nations you see today were established as trading posts. They were
by foreign companies that
morphed into national interests. And so yet there you see all through Africa,
yes,
Mother Africa is still crying for liberation. And I was just in Jamaica. You will find a group of Africans there still talking about the song of freedom. How can we sing?
I think Maya Angelou said it better. I know why the cage bird sing. The cage bird sings for freedom.
Yes.
So
So this is the Igbo story. It is a serious story of the emancipation of a people and also the liberation of a people of a land. To the point that people can stand. Self-determination is at the core of international law. And so when Biafra stood up in May 30th, 1967, we were actually saying what everybody have said, including the colonialists and those pilgrims in America. The revolutionaries here in America saying we want to be free from a tyrannic government. And interestingly, it was the same tyrannic government, Her Majesty's government, that continued in Africa. So, but that was why it was really, really surprising that the Americans did not join us in that effort, since they understood our story.
yes,
And our story was part of their story of rising up against a
That's-
tyrannic regime.
that's the thread that runs across.
Yes.
We are all connected.
Yes.
And it's tough for people to see it because we run into all these other tribal or ethnic, or we find prejudices. We find one of them that we use to disqualify other
Yes.
people. Thank you, Mazio Delega. I think you've said it all. I can't say Africa Unite because you already said that. I can't say work with your neighbors because you also already said that. And I think people already know this, so I will say catch you on.
They will.
Who's coming after us?
Najavine.
Okay. Oh, and is she back?
Yeah.
She done with her
Many
programs?
Africans feel very strongly about the motherland. Africa is a continent that calls those who are born or rooted in any of its countries to always return home, especially after leaving this earth.
That one is just to
The
listen.
truth is,
563.
African diaspora communities in the U.S., Canada, and Europe
563.
still struggle when it comes to the
9,
repatriation